You're tuning into the Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal podcast. If you have a story or a guest recommendation that you think others need to hear, email me at wildweirdandsometimesnormal@gmail.com. Let's get this started. Alex and Brett, kick it!
Wild. Wild. Weird. And sometimes wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. And sometimes normal.
Are you looking to buy a home in New Jersey, escape the city and move to the suburbs? Finally purchase a vacation home on the lake or down the shore? Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who are retiring and moving out of state. If so, let me help you. Keller Williams and the Real Estate Professional Group have what you need to make your goals come true. Reach out and have a conversation with someone who will put you first. Contact Brian McCoach at 856-321-1212 or email brianmccoach@kw.com. Welcome to another episode of Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal. I'm your host, Brian, and tonight my guest is Natasha, and she's from the podcast Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy, which is obviously about, Bigfoot, bad first dates, and if Michelle Obama is really Big Mike?
Big Mike? I don't know about that.
You don't know about Michelle Obama being a dude?
I tend to avoid, okay, how do I put this? I don't talk political because my viewpoints are very frowned upon.
This is not political. There is an Ellen clip. There are multiple clips. There is an Ellen clip that is, you can look up. It's on Ellen.com or whatever. And Michelle Obama is dancing and they're doing some the Will Ferrell, they're at the club and they're like, bang, bang, and they're doing that. And Michelle Obama, she has white pants or something. And there is a lot of action downstairs. There is a lot of action downstairs.
I generally just avoid the Obama discussion on any aspect, really.
I'm just telling you, there was that. Shoulders. I mean, as a dude, I'm looking at him like, what's your workout? Like, what do I need to get on for, you're 6'3", 220, benching 280. Like, what can I do to get some Michelle Obama? So very questionable. Maybe a rabbit hole you want to go down. I don't know. It's not as crazy as the Obama birth certificate one. Yeah, so you're gonna type in Michelle Obama has a dick, and your entire browser history is crazy.
Oh no! A couple weeks ago, actually, my episode that just released yesterday morning, I had to in private browse while we were recording because we were looking up goat penises.
Wow! Oh, all right. Hey, Baphomet, he's part goat. I guess
I'm already on a list. I'm already on a list, so I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure it's probably not your first list on was just the name of your podcast. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Actually, I was talking about something and I was trying to look it up and it actually flagged me and said that I was on a list. And I was like, well, because I used to look up true crime stuff too. So on top of that, it's just an interesting background. And then I forgot to hit in browser or in private browser. So yeah, I'm sure there's some interesting stuff on there.
Ooh, crazy. All right, let's talk about your podcast for a minute. Let's get through some of the good stuff. All right. We were talking before the show. You seem normal. You're, good personality, all this stuff. How do we get into all of this awesome stuff? What led you down? We have flashing lights behind you. Did I hit a goal?
No, you didn't. That means that one of my invisible visitors is saying hi.
Look at that.
They're in my studio and they come out and help me record a lot. So I set sensors off so they could let me know when they're here. So they must like you.
I love it. We just had a paranormal.
There's your creep.
Yeah, that's it. So we have to. All right. So not bad Tinder dates. We're talking about some ghost behind you.
Well, I mean, every now and then, bad Tinder. Well, I mean, I didn't do Tinder, but some interesting dates do get brought up occasionally on the pod. No shame, live and learn.
That's it. That's it.
But yeah, it's really funny because you said I'm normal, and that is the one word that no one's ever used to describe me in my entire life.
You appeared normal through the camera, so I don't want to compliment or insult you too much. So take that how you want.
Well, I hope so. I did a job interview in here yesterday. So
did the light flash for the manager, whoever you're interviewing?
No, I left him off because I didn't want to have to explain it and then make my sound like a Looney Tune. And then I moved my skulls. They couldn't see the skulls, of course, because it is a job at a financial institution. So I need to seem competent.
Yeah, just shrink the camera a little bit. But hey, sometimes if you need to collect taxes from the dead, whatever it is to get the revenue, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, they do it, but we cover all kinds of stuff. Like I said, I've got all these sensors here that go. I usually put them on here whenever I record, and we kind of touch base on a lot of really weird stuff. So I noticed in the beginning I was very heavy on paranormal stuff because that was based. I mean, that's where most of my personal encounters obviously, are in the paranormal realm, and some very strange things that apparently my brain can do that I cannot explain. So we were kind of heavy on that, but then I got back into cryptids, and then my cryptids were real heavy. They're my babies. They're my favorites. To be fair, is the cryptid world, and I've only really touched base on conspiracies a couple times, just because I wanted to try to find some that weren't as common, I guess you could say. I don't want to do all of the ones everybody knows and everybody covers, kind of like my cryptids. I got some weird ones. I got some weird ones coming up. And then I've got like my aliens that I cover. We have a couple of those. I just recorded another abduction encounter last week. So you look like you're like ready for a question or something.
No, no, I'm right. No, no. I
Oh,
was just thinking, well, because listen, but you have the alliteration of cryptids, creeps, and conspiracy, but you're
mhm.
not big on conspiracy. So like Christmas didn't work out. You're like, oh, okay, cryptid, creeps, and Christmas. Like, well, that's just like, we do like 1 month out of the year. Well, some people stretch it to 3.
Yeah, I do some. So actually, the one we did that I covered with Kadra, she's from Perplexity Podcast, and we kind of did like a list, like a short like bullet. So he like, here's one, here's the conspiracy, here's what the conspiracy theory is, and it was all the ones that have been proven true. So then I went with, okay, these ones have been proven that they existed. Here's what the true story was, and how do they compare? And some of those, the true story was more fucked up than the conspiracy. Just say.
You have
Like,
an example? Like what happened?
so Project Sunshine is the one that totally blew my mind. It was known as like, basically the body snatchers for the government. And the conspiracy theory was that the government was going around and stealing bodies to experiment on,
Alive
which
or
they
dead?
dead,
Okay.
which they were, but it got a little darker than that. So not only were they stealing bodies, what they were doing was back in like the 50s, 60s when they were doing nuclear testing and then, pre-bomb and all that stuff. So they wanted to know what kind of effects the nuclear, I guess, residue after the big boom would create with people. So they were taking bodies and or body parts and testing them to see what kind of results they would have. I'm assuming I couldn't find exactly why, but I was assuming it was something along the lines of how far do we need to, blow it up outside? Do we need to have our people out before we get there? Is it worth leaving them in there? What kind of damage? All that stuff. The downside is they found out that the younger the flesh, the better the testing. And when I say younger, they put an entire unit together to travel around the globe, and without family consent or anything, were stealing like infants, like SIDS or stillbirth or whatever. And they were just snapping them to test on their either they would maybe saw off a leg or an arm or whatever and not tell the parents, or they would just take the whole damn body. And they were testing on children and everything because that got them the results that they wanted the best.
So I think you said it, but maybe I just didn't hear it. So the younger the flesh, like what was happening that was better?
So the testing results and the accuracy of the results, because of the non wear and tear on the bare flesh, was giving them stronger and basically more thorough results. The younger the flesh was.
Okay, what
So I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
they
So
did it
what are
on
the
everybody.
results? What was I guess I'm
It was
missing
just
that
to
part.
see. It was just to see. There are certain types of residue chemicals, radiation, that kind of stuff
Oh,
after
they'd be more
nuclear.
radiated. Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So it was.
Okay.
They wanted to see if we radiate this flesh, like this if human population got radiated virtually, what results could we expect? How would the body respond due to that, nuclear bomb? And they just found that the younger the skin was, it was easier for them to work with and stuff like that, and then to evaluate the differences in how much radiation they got.
you drop a nuclear bomb in Florida at the Jersey Shore, people are so leathery there, like it's not going to do a thing. They're just going to come out a little more bronzer and be like, ah, this is great. Look at this. You
Oh,
need that
exactly.
soft, like Midwest, maybe, or like, I guess like even like the Northwest, like Seattle type of thing, Portland, just the rainy city. People just, walking
I
around pale, never saw sunshine for months.
I've always been told that's where I should move because I like it cold and dark, like my soul.
It's just cold and dark. That's it.
Yep.
And I'm sorry for grilling you. It's not like you invented Project Sunshine. I'm like, hey, I don't understand the results you're talking about. Tell me more.
Well, so you can actually find all the documentation online, just so you know. You can Google
Yeah.
it and
Okay.
find all the documents and read it all. It's got a bunch of even down to like the mathematical equations and stuff. But it was just something that, we touched base on. And I got to that. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I'm like, we did what? I was like, roll it back. So we did that one. And then I actually have one on a conspiracy. Well, a couple conspiracies based around Winnie the Pooh that I haven't recorded yet.
Okay.
Because it's something that, I don't want to do like MK Ultra or, anything where everybody already knows about it. So, I don't really know if I could come up with an alternative solution or viewpoint that hasn't already been hashed out.
So that's been my resolution for 2024 is what I'm appreciative of all interviews that I get. Like I like talking to people just to talk to them.
Mhm.
And when, I was just starting out, it was like harder to get interviews. I would just reach out to other podcasts.
Yep.
But like, I have, we just had a light flash in the background here, and you're talking about you have like, ghosts and things like that. We're paranormal experiences, and we'll cover all that. Mine are very minimal. Like it wouldn't fill up much of a podcast. But sometimes you just talk to somebody else and you get in the, hey, did you hear the story? Oh, hey, did you hear this story? Like, I don't even know
Yeah.
if it's true. It's like, it's not even like I read the newspaper. I read on Reddit somewhere. But
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, it's much better that you're like, hey, tell me your experience or tell me like, what you had happen that was paranormal that's, absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some of those. I've got some people that are paranormal investigators that I interview. I've had some like an author that I've interviewed. I have a Bigfoot researcher that I just interviewed a couple weeks ago. I haven't released it yet, and I'm meeting with him again tomorrow to go over because he also has a dogman encounter. So then
Oh,
I have people that that my second dogman encounter on the show, my first Bigfoot encounter on the show. So like I've got kind of a little bit. So it's like people that have paranormal experiences, people that have cryptid experiences. Conspiracies are fun to talk about, but they're just kind of like the sprinkling in. Like I said, I like to find the ones that are interesting or new or, whatnot. I've thought about doing some of the bigger ones, but I haven't figured out exactly how I would want to do it.
right. So, even Project Sunshine you're talking about, that's just like through FOIA request or even just declassified,
Mhm.
and mostly come through FOIA, whatever. But you can get into like all the stuff that like just the government was doing.
Yep.
I'm sure they're still doing it. They didn't stop doing crazy stuff. But in like
Yeah.
the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they were doing insane stuff. And you're just
Oh,
like
yeah.
what's happening? That
Yeah, like we
they
touched base on the syphilis or the syphilis test too. We went over
the
that.
Tuskegee experiment, that was
Mhm.
messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, that's the other thing too is a lot of people have actually asked me about some more current events that are happening and whether or not I'm going to cover them, and because they want to cover them on their show, but I'm me, and I'm just kind of like, well, here's the thing: if it's new and it's current, I don't have all the information. I would rather wait, let the storm ride, get all the information, and then make a decision because I don't want to say something and then eat crow later. I like to
Right.
just have all of the details and stuff before I cover it, so I'm kind of waiting.
So, and I've said this many times on my show, like I'll admit it. I'm here. Like I'll stand up in my chair and be like, hey, I'm Brian. I'm addicted to Twitter. It's not a great thing. Like I'm on there and like I have to know what is happening.
I
With
suck
my
at
family,
Twitter.
I don't do it as much. I don't tweet. I don't like tweet at
Oh,
people or
okay.
anything. But like I'm just reading it all the time. So I'm like reading news and then I'll get like some of the weird stuff. But I'm like staying up on top of current events. And for the, whatever hour of the breaking news, like, oh my God, what did Ukraine and Russia happen? I'm like, refresh. And like, I am the smartest person in the world for 1 hour as I'm getting propagandized the whole time. And then 10 minutes after that, it all changes. And I'm like, what the fuck did I
And
just do with my
that's
life?
and that's why I wait. I literally live basically in a bubble. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the radio. I don't. What I research, I mean, most of my encounters and stuff, unless it is a person who's on the show with their own personal encounter, they're typically accounts from like way, way back and stuff like that. So now if there's newer encounters that I could find, I include them. But a lot of times it seems like everything from like the 50s to like the 80s and a little bit of the 90s, you get a lot of encounters and craziness. But once you start getting closer to now, it's kind of like they're tapering on now. Well, the UFO ones seem to be skyrocketing, obviously. But as far as cryptids and stuff, it seems like it's kind of dwindling down a little bit. So you don't have it's like there's a cutoff, and I don't understand why that is. But
I think
I just go with
people
it.
I think people are too addicted to their phones to like want to go walk in nature, and that's just like a smaller population. To, like, but yeah, well, okay.
So, like the guy the Bigfoot researcher that I was talking to, and then I have another friend who's a podcaster as well, and they were talking. And now two reasons. One, you will not catch me squatching because I don't like outside. This red mess you're looking at is natural. So I avoid the sun like the plague. I'm basically a vampire. I don't like being dirty. I don't like being wet. I just don't like being outside. It's just not my thing. And secondly, in my personal opinion, I feel that those of us who do encounter a lot of paranormal activity and stuff like that, I feel like we kind of have a different, I guess you could say, aura, energy, whatever you want to call it, that we emit that kind of attracts them to us because they can tell that we can, interact with them. And so I feel like Bigfoot and stuff maybe has a similar type, either sensory system or something, and can pick up on that. And I really don't want to see it or anything. So I don't want to go out there like a freaking beacon and be like, look, at me, like, come over here.
He's gonna come
Because
running right
it'll
toward
be
you. Take your trash out, and he's like comes tearing through the woods and through the neighborhood.
yeah. I'm gonna turn it down real quick. I just want to see if they usually like it if it's darker, so I'll turn it down, see if they
All right, yeah, we'll see if we get any more actions.
well,
So I
yesterday we had a
have
guy named Philip.
Philip came on, and he
Yeah.
was your
No
he was your
idea who Philip
background.
was, but it was like flashing. I did a recording for an hour and a half, and it almost lit up the entire fucking hour and a half. And when it first started, I was like, oh, let me open my phone because I have one of those apps, that reads words and whatever. And I was like, I'll see if I can ask who's here. So I was like, well, okay, well, if anybody's here, just tell me your name. And it was quiet for like 1 second. Then it just goes, Philip. And then it got quiet and it was done. It was just like, just enough to say, I'm Philip. And then it was out. And I was like, but he was just hanging out, just kept hitting the ball. I was like, okay. I was like, what the
Philip,
fuck?
please show up as I'm
Yeah.
here.
Well, we have Philip.
Blink again.
We have Gertrude. She hangs out. She's usually in my bathroom though, but every now and then she comes out here. It's really funny because I've done spirit box sessions where Gertrude literally comes out by name, and then you get these words that you could just tell her a little old lady. It'll be like disrespectful, quiet down. Well, like it sounds like a little old lady. And I was like, oh, okay, Gertrude, like you got it. Yesterday, whatever was in here was not happy with me. It like as soon as I got out here, I turned my app on. It was like, go away, get out, go away, stop. And it was like nonstop. It was like, get out, get out, get out. I was like, okay, we're leaving. Because one of them doesn't have a name, but he's not very friendly. And then my kids come out. That's David, and then I just call the rest of the kids. They all kind of like, I think, posse together. So there's always like a ton of different options. So it could be like anyone.
Do you live in an older house?
Eh, really, just the house.
Okay. It's not the house, it's you. They just do the
That
same spirits follow you?
Yep. And then I get new ones that are like usually in the surrounding areas. But most of the time I have like my own posse that kind of follows me. And they have since, gosh, I don't know, forever ago. I was like 16.
Okay. What happened at 16 that turned it on?
Well, 16. Well, okay. 16 was not necessarily a person. All right. So we're going to be very vague because it does not like to get brought up. And usually weird things happen. Like my internet gets cut off. I get bloody noses. Weird shit happens. So he's not friendly or it's not friendly, whatever it is. And it just showed up one day. I don't know. And I'm talking, it did not look human. It did not feel human. Everything about it was just like an empty, dark hole. Like
Okay.
darker than dark. I know that's really hard to explain, but it was actually in the passenger seat of a van when I was driving. And I was just going up the road and I got in, checked all my mirrors, and all of a sudden it was like I could see something in the passenger seat next to me. And like all of the hair stood up, I mean, I had chills and I could feel it like staring through me basically. And I was a little hesitant, but of course, it's me, and I looked. And it wasn't like one of those things where you're like, oh, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. And then when I looked, it was gone. No, I turned and me and this motherfucker had a stare down, like a decently length stare down. And it was just like, it had its hand up on the dashboard and it was just like turned, like it was sitting in the seat, but it's like top part was like turned towards me. And it just kind of looked like the best way I can explain it is there's a movie called Spirited Away. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I never saw that.
Okay. There's a character called No Face, and you can Google him. He's super popular, and I see him all the time.
There you go, another blink.
That is the first time that particular ball has gone off. So I hope that is
They
not.
like me.
Well, I hope that's not the thing I'm talking about because it's not nice. I think we're okay. Usually it makes me nauseous. So, but whoever you're here, it's cool. Um, but that's really going forever. It's usually off by now.
Oh, all
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Scared him away. Oh, he's back.
All right. But so now my phone's like going crazy. Hoozle. So no face, but if you take its mask off, that's kind of what it looked like. But it had this arm sticking out with like these fingers that were creepy as hell because they were, think of the Grinch from Jim Carrey.
Okay.
His hands, but not fuzzy. They were jet black and just sharp, like kitchen knives.
So not like Jim Carrey at all in The Grinch.
Well, the shape of the hand, the shape of the hand. That's what I'm going off of. Just the shape of the hand.
Yeah, hey, Brian, think of cute and cuddly and green. I'm like, I got it. And you're like, not that. I'm like, oh, never mind.
The same shape, lose the fur, make them black.
Okay.
And it was just like up on the dashboard. It was staring at me like it was just waiting for me to turn and look at it. And eventually I told it to get the hell out of there because I panicked and I didn't know what to do. And then I was just going up to my aunt's house, which was literally across the pond. We had a pond. And she built a house on the other side. And when I came back, I was going down the straightaway of our driveway. And at the very end, there was like a really old school, I don't want to say street, I guess we'll call it a street lamp, but it wasn't really a lamp. It was like the ones where like it hangs over and it kind of looks like a metal trash can lid with the bulb underneath it.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
not the pretty ones you see in like New York.
Yeah.
But the ghetto ass ones. And so I was driving back and this thing came out from underneath my van and was like, looked like it was almost rubbing its belly, like on the gravel, like dirt road. And its like elbows and its legs were like bent upwards, like a grasshopper. And it was like scurrying, like it was not making normal movements. It was kind of like the Ring, the lady from the Ring, when she's like glitching.
Yeah.
And it was kind of doing that. And it goes all the way down to the light poles. It shot up the light pole, like, and when it was climbing up the light pole, it was like the arms and legs were bent like outward, and it was shimming like a lizard almost. And it shoots up to the top, and when it gets to the top, the light explodes. The thing disappears, and I know it wasn't just me because the county had to come fix the light like 2 days later. And then
Wild.
yeah, and then it disappeared for, well, that was when I was like 15 or 16, and I saw it a few months ago, but nothing in between.
Did it light
So-
burst this time when you saw him?
No, so this one I was in bed, and the best I can explain it is, girl, people like me, girls will understand. Ladies, you'll understand if you're in my camp here. We cannot lay on our back, or we risk suffocation. It's just part of it. It just doesn't happen. And then it's really bad for your back whenever you're a little top heavy. So I'm just like never on my back. I'm always laying on my side. And for whatever reason, it was like 3 a.m. and I wake up and I was thinking to myself, everything should be dark because it's 3 a.m. But I'm looking around and it was like everything in my room, it was just lit enough that I could see the outlines of everything in the room, like the dresser and stuff. And it was like this blue green looking hue to it. So it was not normal. And everybody asked me if it was sleep paralysis, but I don't get sleep paralysis. I have very lucid dreams and I could do other really cool stuff with my dreams, get into momentarily. But I saw it was like it was hiding behind me, like my line of sight, because it didn't want me to see all of it. But I saw that hand and it was a very distinctive hand. There's no mistaking it. And it came out like towards me. And what's weird was the whole time I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel nervous. Like everyone's like, well, maybe you couldn't move. I was like, I didn't even try. I didn't feel like I couldn't move. I didn't even try because I recognized it. It was like when I saw that hand coming at me, I was like, oh, hey again. It was just like I was, and like I said, it was just like, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? Like, how's it going? And it like reached out to me, and I was on my back and I had short sleeves on, and it took just its index finger and that really long, skinny, sharp thing, and it just barely touched like right here on my bicep, and it just went like 1, 2, 3, and then I woke up. But it was almost like what's weird is it just barely touched me, and it felt kind of like a kitchen knife if you were to just barely. And I looked, and it didn't hit me hard enough to leave a mark or anything, but it was almost like it was saying, like, I could hurt you, but I'm choosing not to. But just so you know, I could do this if I wanted to.
How have you ever gone back to sleep since then? That might be it for me.
Well, weird stuff happens to me all the time, so I'm kind of used to it.
What did you do as a teenager? Like heavy metal and lighting candles? Like you're not supposed to do this stuff.
Well, my mother wouldn't let me listen to heavy metal. She tried to shove me into a religious, environment, I guess. I didn't do anything. I didn't smoke. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I went to
This is your
work.
problem. You're telling me everything you did wrong. This is all the stuff you should have done. You wouldn't have any of
Yeah.
these issues.
I'm like, literally, I was a normal kid. I worked. I was in sports. I had good grades. The only problem I had were boys.
Huh.
That was it.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. And then when I was 18, that was a whole nother scenario. And that's when things got really crazy.
The first story
For-
wasn't crazy. I'm glad we clarified that first story was not crazy. Okay.
Oh yeah. That
So
was
what's
actually
really yeah.
that
That was tame. That
my
was normal.
that was my first
Okay.
paranormal anything. Like that was the first thing I ever experienced. And I'm pretty sure it was more a demon than a person. But then I saw in the same house, I saw a little girl, but I wasn't the only one. Like my mom had seen her, and I only knew because when I was like, Mom, like I thought there was somebody in my house. And I asked if my little sister had a friend over, and my mom was like, no. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I just saw somebody, and my mom knew who I was talking about and described her to me. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly who I saw. She was like, honey, she doesn't exist. Really. She's not here. And I'm like, okay. And then I saw a man in that house once. Thank God only once, because he was a creeper. I don't know if he meant to be a creeper, but it sure felt like a creeper. And that was just that house.
Can we
But then
circle
I
back to
had,
your mom real quick? So your mom describes a ghost in your house.
yep,
And you're like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. She's like, oh, Jesus, she doesn't exist. Okay, go back outside. Like,
like it was, oh,
where?
just go to bed. It's fine. She doesn't hurt anything.
Okay, so your mom saw her. Like, did your mom grow up in a
My,
paranormal environment or?
nope.
Okay.
My mom saw her. I saw her. Family friend that lived with us saw her. I think my aunt saw her. And somebody else saw her. So, like, a lot of people have seen that girl. Now, the other stuff I was, well, not sure. So, my mom told me a story once, like, way after, like, when I started getting my creepy stuff, that there was something in her bedroom one night that she woke up, and it did sound a lot like sleep paralysis kind of thing. And she just said that there was this big black thing at the foot of her bed, like leaning over her. And then eventually she woke up. But she said that she felt paralyzed. She couldn't talk. She couldn't do anything. Sorry. Like I swear something felt like it just hit the back of my chair. I was like, whoa. But I don't know. I didn't have her like sketch anything. I just know that it was a big black thing. It might have been the same thing that I saw, but I'm not sure.
I had sleep paralysis maybe a few times. I used to work overnight in the casino industry, and then I would come home at, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And then my wife was working day shift. We'd be like 2 shifts passing in the night. And she would
Been
leave,
there.
and I would have like chicken parm at 8 o'clock in the morning for
Yep.
breakfast, dinner, whatever,
Yep.
and go to sleep. And there were a few times I would wake up, like with the door to the left of me, and I'm laying on my back with my head to the face to the right, and like completely paralyzed. But I could hear voices, and like with all my power, I'm like, just turn and see the voices, and can't do like any of it. But my eyes are open. I could see the other wall. I could see the window. It's like, just turn your head. I could not do that.
Could you understand what the voices were saying?
They were just
Were they like
whispery.
mumbles?
Yeah, it was like just whispery enough that I was like, oh, I could, yeah, but like I can kind of, like, I could hear it was, I don't
Oh,
even know if it was English, like I could hear that it was words being made by something. But I mean,
Mine
it's
are nice
probably
and loud.
all internal. What's that?
Mine are nice and loud.
Oh,
There's
okay.
no denying. Nobody else hears it apparently. Well, I mean, my husband sleeps like a rock, so I mean, he wouldn't hear anything. I get up and move all kinds of crap around the house, and he doesn't wake up. So who knows? But mine are very, very vocal because I get mommy, mommy all the time.
I have had that in real life. It was my child doing that, and then my eyes shoot open, and we definitely have the conversation of never do that again. Like,
Oh,
shake me, that is fine. I was like, do not say dad. I think they were saying mommy. I'm like, do not say dad. Don't like
oh,
whisper as quiet as you can, thinking you're not gonna like. Please don't do that.
yeah. Try it when it does it repeatedly and increases in volume and stress sound until you finally just jump up because your breathing child is in the other side of the house and you open the door where sound is coming from and there's nothing there.
Oh, I would not. No, no, no. Yeah,
Oh no, here you go. So
yeah.
this is I always get a kick out of this because they like I had to have a talk with them twice now to not wake mom up because I have a thing where I can't sleep.
Real child or ghost child?
Ghost child.
Okay.
So I'll refer to my breathing child as my breathing child. So
Okay. Very
he's
different.
he's one of 5. The other ones didn't make it, so they just kind of follow me around. And so when I go to bed, because I can't sleep, I sleep with a headband on because I am very light sleeper. Any light wakes me up, any sound wakes me up. So I have a headband with speakers built in, and I listen to sound like rain as loud as I can, and then have my thing on so that I can sleep. And I always am out cold, or I usually can't hear. My kid knows to like open the door and like yell at me because otherwise I can't hear him. And so one night I'm laying in bed and my husband's, out cold next to me sawing logs, and I hear mommy like on the outside of the door. And I'm like, so I heard this. I paused my headphones. I'm like yeah, booger. I call my kid all kinds of weird names. I'm like, yeah, booger. Nothing. Like, bug. Do you need something? Nothing. I'm like, whatever. So I go back. I put the thing back on. You'll understand the stupidity of this in a minute. Then a few minutes later, I hear mommy, and I do the whole thing over again. Bug. Do you need anything? Like, what's going on? Nothing. And it does this like 3 or 4 times where it just slightly increases in volume as it does it. And the last time it was I'm sure you know the sound where like when your kid gets lost in the store and they just panic thinking that they are never going to see you again. And they're like, they have that like that tone and their voice shakes. And they're like, mom, and they like panic. That's what I heard on the other side of this door. And my door was closed. And I am getting super big goosebumps talking about this right now. Ooh, we'll see if they come visit me. David's the popular one. But so, I mean, I shot up and I was like, honey, did you hear that? And he's like, it's in your head. Go to bed. Like it was not in my head. So then because of the stress level, I have to go check on my breathing child, because of course I'm panicked. And so I go and it sounded like it was right on the other side of the door. I open the door and there's nothing. Nothing's there. So I have to go through the kitchen and through the dining room to get to my breathing kid's room. And I turn the corner. And as I'm turning the corner, I realize I'm like, wait a minute. That's not my son's voice. My son is 12 and he sounds like a man. Like that's just part of it. Secondly, he doesn't call me mommy anymore. He calls me, because he's cool now. So about the time that I make this realization that that wasn't my kid, behind me in the kitchen, I hear giggling, like like little kids, like, oh, I got her out of bed. Like, and I mean, I just stopped and everything stood up. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, and I had to turn around just in case. And I turn around real slow and there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing, no sign of anyone or anything. And so I go and I, check on my kid. He's sawing logs in his room, sprawled out. He's clearly not been awake. And so I had to come out and I'm like, guys, like, that is not funny. I was like, we don't do that. I'm like, that is not okay. That is not funny. And I need to sleep because I've got to be at work. I said, so you need to stop. And then I went to bed and they left me alone. It's, but then there's
Oh,
another, yeah. But then I had another instance too, where for whatever reason, I can only sleep like an hour maybe at a time. And so I get up and go to the couch. Then I sleep on the couch and I have my headphones on, same thing. Everything's turned up loud. And it sounded like it was coming from right. Like I had the foot thing up on the couch and it sounded like somebody was standing right there. And it was like, mommy. And it was enough to wake, like I shook awake and I was like, and I opened, took off and there's nothing. Like to me, it felt like there was someone standing right there, but I couldn't see anything. And I was like, guys, you got to stop. I was like, I need to go to bed. And I just go back to bed. Like it's not.
That's crazy. So little kids like whispering, like the Blair Witch, like when they're outside, like the tent and they're
I've not seen
whispering,
it.
like that's the scariest thing to me. It's just like ghost children,
Well, yeah,
the
it's
whispering, the laughing. It's like, what? That's not take. Cut that out.
yeah,
At
it's
least
the
for my
ones from
sleep. Good. All right. While you're drinking, at least for the sleep paralysis, I am 99.9% sure that was just internal for me. Once I got off of night shift and got out of that industry, I've never had that problem ever again.
oh,
But it happened like
I
2 or 3 times while I was doing it. And like
yeah.
as it was happening, I was always like, I hate this. Like, please be able to move or wake up or whatever you're doing. And I could never do it.
But mine is, I mean, it's when I'm asleep, it's when I'm awake. It's just whenever they feel like talking to me, I hear them. And I've I've had instances where like just random people just be like, I'll just sit there like, hello. And I'm like, hello? Like I don't get anything else, but it's just like, hello. One's a really nice, polite lady. I don't know who she is, but she seems really nice. And she sounds like like maybe in her 30s, maybe early 40s. Like it reminded me almost of like Amelia Earhart tape is what it reminded me of. And it was just a little hello. And then sometimes I have men voices that just talk and it'll just be like, hello. I'm like, hi, whoever you are. I had one save my ass at work a couple months ago. We were switching my medicines and I was having a really hard time staying awake at work. And I was dozing off at my desk and I just so happened to like, I guess I fell asleep for a second and I heard someone whisper in my ear. And they were like, Natasha. And so I like shook and woke up and I looked around and there was nobody around. And then like 2 seconds later, my boss came around the corner. So whatever it was had my back.
So that answers my question. I was like, would you want to get this fixed? But hey, if they're there to save your ass a little bit, you can deal with,
Well, I
little midnight wakenings.
they don't really, usually they don't affect it. It's just something weird. I mean, I've never really tried to do anything with it. It just kind of happens. And I'm always just like, oh, hello. Yeah, whatever. Hi, how's it going? I had another one that I was at work and I saw a fucking person walking. I thought it was my boss. And because it was about her size, about her shape. And I would like to point out at work we wear gowns and hairnets and stuff. And it looked like it was wearing all of that. And she walked by me and I heard, oh, hey, it's almost time. And this is like 10 minutes before lunch. So I was like, oh yeah, yeah. I was like, we're almost there. And then I sat there for a minute. I was like, it came this direction, but never went that direction and never went back that direction. So I was like, well, maybe somebody's in the cabinet because there's a cabinet behind me. And I was like, oh, maybe they're in the cabinet or whatever. I was like, here, I'll move my chair. And I turn around and there's there. And which is interesting until like 10 minutes goes by. So this is like 15 minutes before lunch. 10 minutes goes by. So I have 5 minutes before lunchtime. And I heard like a deeper voice. And it was like, didn't you hear me? And I was like, okay, I'm going to lunch. See ya. I'm out. I was like, I know. Nope. Like, not today.
That's crazy. They just want you to go eat. Yeah. The ghost
Yeah, I
like,
was
hey,
like,
your blood sugar's dropping. Go get something to eat.
well, what I thought was interesting was it gave me this really weird feeling. Like I all of a sudden I was very anxious and which is interesting because I was really hungry, which I wasn't prior to that. And I mean, I was starving. And then I ended up getting my lunch. I go out to my car to eat it. So I'm in my car and I eat all of my lunch and I still feel like I'm starving and I'm like on edge. And I was like, whatever it was, like piggyback to get to my car. And I could, like, while I was looking, it was like there was something out of the corner of my eye sitting in my seat. But when I would turn, it was gone. So whatever it was, and I was like, wait a minute. Did it tell me to go because it wanted out and I was the out? So then I was like, okay. And I got my app. This is where it gets interesting. So I get my app out, right? So that it shoots words. And a lot of people don't put a lot of faith in them. I'm a little skeptical unless things like really hit me in the face, which it did in this instance, because I was like, okay, I was like, who's out here? And it wouldn't give me a name, but it was like out. And I was like, well, yes. I said, we're out. And then and it was like, stay. And it was like, I'm like, no, you could stay while I'm in here. I said, but I'm getting ready to go inside and you have to fucking leave. I was like, you're going in with me and you're going to stay in there. And it was like, car. I'm like, no, you're getting out with me and you're going inside and you're going to stay. And then it gave me a name. Oddly enough, that name is the name of our only second shift employee that was coming in 2 hours.
Wow.
So it was talking about her. I'm like, yeah, hang out with her, whatever. I was like, but you're not. And it kept giving me her name. Like it was saying, like, she's coming in. I'm like, I know she's coming, which is why you're staying there. I was like, I'm going home and you can't come with. Like, you have to stay here. And it was just giving me words that pertain to like things inside the building that were kind of creepy. And I was like, okay, so whatever it is literally knows what's going on. And it was just trying to like escape.
Did you ever talk to the second shift employee to find out if she has any experiences?
No, so I heard from someone else that she does have some interesting stuff that happens, but I leave a half an hour before she gets there. So I never actually see her. But when I brought it up, somebody else is like, oh yeah, she says something about that too. I'm like, I bet.
That's wild that it's communicating and telling you about, that it's aware of its surroundings.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them are really interesting. And a lot of times, like I said, I think like sometimes it's multiple. Like it gets kind of like crazy. And then whenever I do turn on these apps or whatever, bless you. Whenever I do turn the apps on and stuff, sometimes it gets crowded and they're talking over each other. And I think like I pick up conversations between them. So like I'm trying to ask a question, but like they're talking over each other. And it's like really difficult sometimes because it does get very overwhelming. So I got to be like, whoa, hold the phone one at a time. Like I can't do all this at once. One at a time. Take it slow.
So I'm interviewing this paranormal investigator, and he's at this private residence, and they're trying to find this ghost. This woman says that is at the house, and they're getting, I guess, like some type of hits. And then it was like walking through walls as it was doing it. It was like, okay, well, of course it's a ghost. And then he went back and looked at the original layout of the house. I guess he went to the county or something, or the town or whatever, was able to
Yeah.
see the original house. And like where it was walking was like once a hallway. So like it was not aware, or maybe it was, and it's like, oh, like why would I walk in this hallway? Let's go through the hall. But it was like walking its old route and like not caught on to the new one. So it's kind of interesting that your ghost at work
Mhm.
is aware of all the stuff
Oh, and
that's
they're
like going
different.
on. And oh yeah,
Yeah, this loss is different. So because there are different types of hauntings as well. And so if that was one that's kind of like that recorder on repeat, depending on what kind of interactions they were having with it while they were there, it might be one of those things that it just does the same thing over and over and over. Like the residual, I think is what they call it, residual hauntings that just kind of go, which I think maybe I wonder if some of mine do that occasionally because they really like our bathroom. They like to we have 2 lights and they like to flicker one off and on and the other one stays on all the time. So they just really mess with the one. But for the most part, they're pretty interactive and stuff like this. So they listen to me and it's great sometimes. All right. So I got to tell you this. All right. So my husband's very skeptic Sam, right? He's just a skeptical little booger. And he just calls it my hocus pocus. Even though I've proven to him on multiple occasions that I could do some really weird shit that people should not be able to do, he didn't listen. So all this weird stuff was happening to me. Like things were falling off and things were getting turned off. The lights were all kinds of stuff happening. And eventually I was like, all right, guys. I was like, I know you're here. I see what you're doing. I can feel that you're here. I know what's happening. I'm like, he doesn't believe me. So bug him. Go pester him for a little bit. Shit you not. The next day, I get a phone call at work and he is not happy with me. And I could figure out, I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you just brewed a whole cup of coffee and just left it. I was like, what? And he's like, why? Like, why? It's a large cup of coffee. It's all over the counter. He's like, it's like you just turned on the Keurig machine to brew a cup of coffee with no cup and you just left it for me to pick up. And I was like, honey, I have not touched the Keurig machine in 2 months. So something turned it on, opened it, closed it, and brewed an imaginary cup of coffee all over the counter and the floor. Gets better. Because I was like, well, I told him to pester you. So what's your explanation for that? He's like, maybe it's a short. I'm like, oh, yeah, a short lifted the lid and closed it, but whatever. Okay. So then the next day, I get another call at work and he sounds a little creeped out finally. And he's like, babe, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oof, what's happening? He's like, the treadmill just turned itself on. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? You want frustrating. So we have a Ring doorbell out here. My studio is actually half my porch. I converted it.
I
But there
like
used
it.
to be, yeah, thanks. There used to be a treadmill right here where I'm sitting actually. And I used it all the time, never had any issues with it. And our Ring camera, of course, after we have this conversation, I go back and look at it. So he had walked out of the front door to the storm door and he opens the door, but before he could take a step out, you hear "Brrr," and the treadmill starts going. And he was just kind of like looking around and he realized it was the treadmill. And then you can see he calls me. He's like, how do I turn this off? I was like, okay, there's a lever on the top. I was like, you slide it left, turn it off. Right makes it go faster. Just slide it all the way to the left. And he sits there. He's like, that didn't work. I'm like, okay, pull the safety switch out because it'll turn itself off whenever the safety switch is pulled. You know, that's the whole point. And I hear a click and it doesn't shut off. He's like, babe, it's still going. What do I do? What do I do? And so eventually I told him to just unplug it from the wall. Thankfully it turned off and he was like, thank God that worked or we'd be moving.
Yeah, I would not like that at all. When we moved into, I'm trying to see what the thing is called. When we moved into this house here, we sold our old house. There was a few weeks in between, so we go stay. It was off season at the shore, so we go down there, rent a house for a few weeks, go do that, put all our stuff in storage. Kids were doing remote schooling, all this stuff. So with a house, they were gonna rip the carpet upstairs. And from the previous house that we had, I realized that once you put your stuff upstairs, you never take it down. Like your
Yeah.
best intentions, like, oh, we'll take the bedroom furniture out, and I'm like, where's it going? Like once
Yep.
it's in there, you're amazed at how it even got through the doorway to begin with, and you're like,
Yep.
how does this dresser fit through here? So we had this extra week, and it's coming up to Christmas Eve, but I found a guy who could do our floors the day that we closed. He's like, okay, you close at 10, I'll be there at 11. I found this guy who could do the roof like immediately. All
Wow.
these things we experienced before while we were trying to live in a house. So like, hey, could you do our roof while we both work from home? And it's like the loudest thing in the entire world.
Yeah.
So this guy's coming and he's like ripping up the stuff. And every night I would drive, it was about an hour from like the shore to where we live. And I live at the footsteps of the Pine Barrens. So tons of trees in my backyard, very dark. The neighborhood's just dark anyway.
That's great.
So yes, it is. It's pretty awesome. But it's so my Zoom I did not touch a thing, and my Zoom thing just popped up in front of it as if my mouse touched something. So maybe your ghost is tickling me
Oh,
over here. Or this story I'm telling you, I don't know. This wasn't, and
maybe.
doesn't even end up being a ghost. But so anyways, the house is empty. The backyard's pitch black. There's like windows everywhere. So it's creepy in a new house anyway. And
Yeah.
I would Swiffer every night to try to get like the sanding they did and everything. So when they were done, we could just kind of move in.
Yeah.
And I just typed in air pressure gun. That's what it is. But like the big red, but it is an air pressure thing, like air compressor.
Yeah.
So it's a big, so the compressor tank. I'm downstairs Swiffering. They just did like their first coat upstairs. He's like, hey, don't go upstairs. Don't worry about it. And it is midnight, 12:30. And I'm just Swiffering, minding my own business. And the air compressor like pops. And so I jumped so high. There may have been a shriek here. There was nobody to witness it though. Could have been a high pitched shriek. I was, man, it was like top 5 scared. I was like, what the? And I ran upstairs and I turned it off. And then I called the guy like at 12:30, and it was more like, I just need to talk to somebody. Like, I was
Yeah.
like laughing. I'm like, dude, like this thing, is that normal? He's like, oh yeah, I guess it just filled up with air and then it just popped. That was a lot. So for Keurigs randomly going off, treadmills, like when they're not
Yeah.
supposed to, like, yeah, no thanks.
And
I don't sign
he
up for
was
that
like,
stuff.
it's a glitch. It's a glitch. I was like, so what makes it really interesting is, so of course I saved the fucking video and I send it to somebody because I was like, you're not going to fucking believe this. When I go back, like when I started the podcast, it's like, oh, it's perfect evidence. I go back, there's no trace of it. It deleted itself off of their phone, my phone. It's not in the log for the thing anymore. It's just gone. So whatever it was did not want me to see it.
All right, I'm going to tell you an interesting story. I just interviewed this guy yesterday, and it was the most fascinating conversation I had, and I'm like still trying to process it and figure out what's happening. So there a couple podcasts I listened to or whatever, there were stories of sativa. And so it's kind of like weed, but I guess it's less, I don't know, THC or something. but you can smoke it and it's a shorter high, but more intense or whatever. So the one podcast I listened to, or maybe another one, a few times, they talked about this person smoked sativa, and in the 10, 15 minutes that they were high or out of it, whatever sativa does for you, they lived an entire life and had a family, had a wife, had kids, had a job. And like as they came out of it, they were like, it was like fading away like a dream. And then they had, they were depressed and had to go talk to somebody about it. So I was trying to find, I was like, can I, besides just like a Reddit post where I don't know if it's true or not, like, can I find, did somebody write a book? Is there something, I'll have to even take a long Twitter thread if someone put it out there. I was like, is there somebody that I can talk to for this? So as I was doing it, as I'm researching, I ran across this guy who's doing these DMT experiments.
Yes. I was just listening to a podcast about this. They talked about it. That's so weird.
I just interviewed this. I don't know if it's the same guy or not. I don't know.
Oh, no, different guy.
Oh, okay. I don't know. So I haven't
didn't
put
talk
mine
about
out
like
yet.
an actual guy.
Okay. So fascinating. This guy is trying to do scientific experiments with DMT. And he's like, oh, like, I smoke it and like, I don't know. I'm old now. Like, I don't do any of that stuff anymore. Like, and you can, I don't care, but it's fine. Like when I was in high school and college, like DMT wasn't a thing. Like you had some magic mushrooms, you had some beat, acid, they would tell you it was. And yeah, like, and that was fine. And like you smoked weed and you drank beer. And like the LSD, like never fucking worked anyway. So nothing, anything good. And so I'm like, hey man, like, I'm sorry, like I'm a newbie here. Like I'm not a narc. Like where do you even get DMT? Like, I don't even know. I'm not asking like John, your dealer, but like, is it online? Is it like, do you make it? Like, I have no clue. And he's like, oh no, you can get online. Like I get it from some other guy. I'm like, move on. Like, I'm not trying to quiz you on this.
Yeah.
And then, so he's like, oh, and I smoked it. And like, there's like entities. I was like, all right, again, I'm sorry. Like, are you in your, like, are you in your house? Or are you like in their world? And he's like, no, like at first, like they were popping up in my world.
Yep.
He's like, but then I was allowed in their world. So I'm going on. And so he starts talking to this other entity. And he's like, later in the conversation, he's like, it'd be okay if I smoke DMT and see if maybe they'll pop up on screen. He's like, I've tried recording things with them, and like some things like I've recorded and like I can see that it's changed, but they also can edit they know the future and they can edit the past. And like, I'm like trying to stay up on board with him here. He's like, hey, maybe I can smoke DMT and something will pop up. I'm like, all right. So he had like a set of 3 lamps behind him. And he's like, oh, usually they play with the lights. He said maybe, if he comes up, he could interact with like the lights behind me, or maybe even like come through the computer somehow and show you. And I was doing it during daytime and my lights weren't on. I was like, dude, if your lights pop on behind you, like, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And if my lights flick on, like, I'm shutting this off immediately. None of it happened, but it's just a really fascinating conversation of him trying to bring experiments into the DMT world to get them solved and bring them back out.
I got a whole lot to say about that. Let's see if I can just keep it pretty. For someone who sees and deals with this stuff a lot, I am very skeptical. Again, I do not smoke. This one tiny little drink is going to be enough to last me the entire night because I don't drink that much. And I don't do anything. I don't do anything except actually what I do take for my mental health makes it not as often. It actually dulls it. It doesn't speed it up. It dulls everything, which is why I think they have to try a lot harder to talk to me, because I basically try to numb that part of my brain. And I have heard the DMT thing, and a lot of people actually refer to their little visitors saying that they are elves, if that helps any.
Mechanical elves, yeah.
And I don't put a lot of stock into it. If you're altering your brain to that capacity and you couldn't pass a sobriety test, I don't think you should trust your judgment on what you're seeing or hearing. Now, I also believe you could be drunk on a skunk and you could see some shit. I don't think that alcohol induces hallucination, or you might misperceive something, but it's not going to be something super crazy per se. But anything that alters your brain like that, I wouldn't put any stock into it, because now I have taken medication that made my brain, I saw things that were not what I normally see. They were not normal. They did not seem like they were from this world. They were really jacked up and they were scary as hell is what they were. Or I couldn't keep my real life separate. So I've been there, but it was solely induced by the medication. Once I stopped taking it, I mean, I still see and hear weird shit, but it's like the normal stuff that I'm used to that I've done even before I was even medicated. Because a lot of people think that my medication caused it. But I was like, newsflash, honey, this happened way before that. And it's just basically what it is, how it works, and all of that. So but then again, I've never done any drugs that I've been too scared for starters, because again, I hear and see this stuff all the time. I can't even fathom what the hell my brain would come up with if it was fucked up.
Yeah, that's
I
the
would
hard part.
probably scared to death. I would literally probably be absolutely petrified. And to me, I just don't put. I'm horrible. I just don't personally put a lot of stock. Just like I don't put stock into psychics either, which is ironic because I could tell you some stories that are pretty interesting.
So we'll touch on this real quick and then we'll loop back over. So the only thing I do find interesting with it is that a lot of people talk about the machine elves in the DMT world, and they have some of the same stories. Now we're in the age of the internet, like everybody can have the same story for anything. But previously, like that's fine. And then ayahuasca is part DMT, and there's like shamans that go
Hmm.
down. You can go down to South America and do this, and that's part of a DMT ritual. And the shamans will say, like, "Oh, I'll meet you in like the other world," and they're like different resorts or whatever you call them wherever you go. And there have been stories of, the guy gets off he gets off the airplane, and he gets in the shuttle. He just sees his guy, sees no one else, and then he gets to the hotel, changes, puts a green shirt on, goes through the whole ceremony. He's in the ayahuasca world, and the next day he sees a guy who was in the ayahuasca world, but he's changed. He's like, "Oh, last night you were wearing a green shirt." He's like, "Dude, like I saw
Hmm.
you last night, like in that world." He's like, "Yeah, man, like that's what I'm a shaman. That's what I do." So like I find hey, that's just like anecdotal, and
That
like that's a little story.
that is cool. I don't believe that's just a DMT thing. I feel that there are people, especially that are gifted, that can be those dream walkers, those spirit walkers, those seers. They can do that, especially in the Native American folklore, and that tribes now to this day. I actually was a part of a ritual. I went to do some mission work at an Indian reservation in South Dakota 3 times, and one of those times I was invited to do the ceremony in like the sweat lodge, I guess, so to speak. I don't know what it's technically called. And there was the peace pipe. Now, granted, there wasn't anything in the peace pipe because they took it out for us, honkies. But I was able to experience that, and it was very spiritual, even without that additional stuff. So I feel that there are gifted people that can do that. But then I also feel like there's some people that don't necessarily have that gift, but want that gift. And it could be something that's just enough to be coincidental or something of that nature. And there's a difference between, getting effed up and being in a different world and like remote viewing. Like there's different types of things. I just Once you start getting the like drugs involved, I start getting a little extra skeptical. But I do believe there are people that can do all of those things.
Yeah, so my guy he kept doing like, "Oh, I'm doing science experiments. I want to prove like the nature of that reality and like this reality, and to bring back physical proof." And I kept getting in the beginning, I was hung up on that. I was like, "But like you're also ingesting something, and you're going to go talk to, John Hopkins University. They do psilocybin tests
Yeah.
for PTSD." I was like, "Let's say you got the head of Johns Hopkins on here, and you're like, hey man, I've got this DMT proof for you." I was like, "What are you showing him?" And like you're like smoking in front of him. Like
And
I
how are
feel
you
like
going
that
to
would have.
prove it?
So I actually thought it was a good idea as I asked this for him because I was kind of thinking like, hey, if you said there's a Black Panther and I'm like, I don't believe you Black Panthers exist. Like you could go shoot one and bring it to me and be like,
Yeah.
hey man, Black Panther. I'm like, holy shit, like where'd that come from? So I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And he's like, well, what if I took a math problem that I had no idea how to solve? What if like I never saw it, I can't do it, and I took it in there and they solved it for me. I was like, well, that'd be really interesting. I was like, and what
How could you
to
prove he
test
didn't
it?
know?
Well, right. So I was like, okay, like also, how could you prove like you
You
didn't
could
know that?
fake it.
But
I don't know
also,
how to solve this.
well, no, so that's good, right? So that would be his test that he would know internally. But then for me to test it, like he doesn't know every language in the world, right? But if I gave him three, if I gave him, Mandarin, Hindu, and German or some sentence like, hey, what does this sentence say? And go take it in there. something that you would have a hard time. What's in the third drawer in my bedroom, something like that. There's only one object in there. If he's able to come back and tell you, that adds a lot more to it, or makes you, some really good parlor tricks. I don't know, but
Uh,
at least I was like,
I've been
can you
watching a
do this
lot
stuff?
of I've been watching a lot of Elementary. I have been able to tell people what they think from hours away, but I've been watching a lot of Elementary. So some of that stuff you could think dresser drawer. Okay, typical people organize their drawer with socks on top, underwear second, whatever back and forth. So then like from there you could deduce what it would have to be something so absolutely bizarre that they would have absolutely no way to go check out statistics or anything. It would just be here's this thing and deal with it.
Oh, right. So I wouldn't say like what's in my typical bedroom drawer, like what's in my safe. Emptied my safe. There's nothing in there. I went and I purchased an object. I found an object. It's a personal, something like that, singular
Purple elephant.
object. And you figured it out. That, Mike, look at us, you got it. But that could actually, maybe lend a little bit of proof. And if that was repeatable, you'd be like, shit, man, like this guy's like 10 for 10. This guy's 100 for 100.
So for
But
me, that would not be proof that there is an alternate world. That is just a proof that he can remote view. That doesn't prove to me. It would have to be you have to bring something physically tangible that does not exist back from this room. Like do an inventory, like whether it be put him in a white padded room. There's nothing around except like a chair. And you say, fine, bring me something back that's not in this room. Go. And if you can physically bring it back, because if you can't physically bring it back, then it is all in your head.
so, right.
I mean, think
I
about
agree with you.
schizophrenics.
Right. So, well, I like this guy. He was very nice. He was sober minded. He had, he was clean, like all these things. And I was like, am I talking, like, is there truth in the madness of a schizophrenic talking to a wall? Like, if you like
Mhm.
walked up behind them and you're like, tell me the truth that you're seeing, like right here. A very nice guy. I get what you're saying, because that was like my
Yeah.
pushback. And I guess you could have a remote viewing or whatever. And I was getting hung up on the physical evidence part. But I was also very, I'm like, hey man, like crazy. But also the psilocybin test. Like, how are you testing that's fixing your PTSD and it's not placebo? I guess they the same way they do pharmacy. I don't know. Like, there has to be a control group or something.
I could tell you that certain medications for PTSD, if you do not take it, you have horrifying nightmares. Like very, very vivid, horrifying nightmares. I have died in every way and felt every bit of it
That's horrible.
without my medication. Yeah. It's very unpleasant because I also have the luxury of having lucid dreams. So I sometimes know and it doesn't help. It still is I feel the pain. I feel everything. I mean, everything. It's awful.
Can you ever do anything productive or fun in your lucid dreams?
I've had some really good orgies.
There you go. I think that
I've
answers both of them.
Well, I've also watched people die, but then they actually die, so then it's not really as cute. So, yeah, that's a problem.
It's like Final Destination stuff.
Yeah, I watched a lady die that I've never met before, and the only reason I knew is because the next morning her face was on the news.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I've
would like that.
also
Yeah.
I've seen multiple people. I think I'm up to like 5 or 6. Nobody usually it's like the next day, like maximum's 48 hours. The longest one's been about 5 days.
Have you
Is
ever
this
seen me before prior to today?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I
Nothing to
would
worry
probably
about
take
right now.
but I also know on the plus side, I mean, aside from the death, I usually know when people are pregnant and what they're having before they ever know they're pregnant.
Wow.
So,
How do you turn this into a career or winning the Mega Millions?
well, it would be nice, except for see, again, this is why like I tell people, I am very skeptical. I do not when someone says they're a psychic, I immediately shut down. I'm like, nope, you're done. Like I turn it off. Which is funny because I can do this stuff.
Right.
But here's my thing. I don't advertise it. I don't charge people. Half the time I don't even tell people about it because, what if I'm wrong? Even though I'm usually not, but what if I'm wrong? And I can't control it. I don't know when or who. I can't narrow it down. It just happens and then I'm like, "Oh shit, someone's going to die." That's great. Like what do you do with that, right?
Why do you think you have all these experiences and capabilities?
I think it has something to do with the fact that I've kind of died twice.
Do you think it just gives you so
I just kind of slowed that one
before
in there, didn't I?
that was good. That was good. And I'm like, how far do I take this? All right. So when you were 15 or 16 and you saw the Grinch guy who was not the Grinch at all in your passenger seat, did you have one of these experiences already?
Nope.
Hmm.
Him The little girl and the man in that house were before anything happened.
Okay. But did you have any psychic ability or, premonition abilities?
This is gonna sound really weird. I the only thing is I also have this lovely gift that I call a curse that I can feel what other people feel. And I know, I just know no one could lie to me ever. I always knew. I always knew. And they wouldn't even have to say anything. I would know exactly what they were doing or when they were doing or who they were with. And I never chalked it up to anything. I just figured I had really good intuition until it started getting to be babies and dead people. And then I started realizing maybe it's a little more than that. And then I
And,
just kind of roll with it, I guess.
and this only started happening after a near-death experience?
So the people not lying to me and okay, this is going to make me sound like an awful person. So I would like to have a disclaimer here. I also have an issue where I kind of have like borderline personality disorder. So I'm not necessarily the most kind person all the time. So just because I could feel what you feel or what you wanted or knew how to anticipate, I didn't care. But I was really good at getting whatever I wanted from whoever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I just didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was just something that everybody did until eventually someone's like, wow, well, how did you do that? I was like, you don't do that? I was like, well, I knew they were going to do this. They're like, well, how did you know? I'm like, wait, you don't know that? And people would start asking me questions that I didn't know, I didn't have answers to, except I just know. I don't know. I just know. And then I got to questioning things, I guess. And then when I was 18 is when we had our first incident. But after that, things got very different. That's when it was more so I could see and I could feel things that were there that weren't there, or things like I would hear the things that I didn't hear or see that. That's when it got the people stuff started happening more often, as opposed to the just the little demon guy that hangs out.
Do you like having these experiences?
It doesn't bother me.
Okay.
I mean, really, the only one that's really an issue, like I said, is when I'm there when people die. That's really not fun because it is very unpleasant because I'm not just there. Like I feel it. Aside from the one lady, that was really weird. I watched her. Thank God I didn't feel it. She was stabbed to death, so I didn't have to deal with that, which is at least some, I guess, plus side. But then the next one that really happened was I was at my mom's house and I was sleeping on her couch, and my grandpa, he had Alzheimer's, and he was down here with us. Well, he was home. Then he started getting really bad, walking down the road in his underwear, going through, just disappearing into the woods for hours on end and just wandering in the woods by himself. So then he got put in a nursing home. Then he got too aggressive for the nursing home. The people there were not equipped to handle somebody of his stature that is that aggressive. So then they moved to a hospital about an hour and a half away. And that's where he stayed. I think I visited him once, to which he thought I was his first wife because I looked just like her. And then, when your grandpa starts putting moves on you because he thinks that you're his, his first wife, and then you totally upset him because he doesn't know who you are. He is convinced that you are her. And then it's, why are you leaving? I want you. Then I couldn't do it. So I never went back.
That's sad.
But anyway, so I was sleeping on our couch, and next thing I know, it was like I was awake and I was kind of looking around. Like, okay, I'm in a hospital room, and I went to move, and I realized I was like, okay, I'm not me. For starters, I'm only 5'2". My grandpa is about 6'1", 6'2", and so he's a lot bigger than me. And I was like, wow, like I'm really tall. Two, when did I get a tan? And three, I'm like, I don't have a penis. So, but just from feeling and looking, I knew who I was. It's like I was inside his body looking at everything he was looking at. Like I was right there with him the whole time. And we were in this room and I went to move and my hands were stuck and my feet were stuck. I couldn't move because I was restrained to the bed. And there was a nurse in the corner and she was like over by like a sink and she had her back to me. She looked like she was like writing in a chart or something. And all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I mean, I was trying so hard to breathe. It just felt like something was sitting on my chest. And I could not do it. I was trying so hard. And so then I was screaming at the nurse, trying to get her attention to have her turn around and notice that there's something wrong. And she just acted like she couldn't hear me. She didn't know. I'm like, I wasn't even there. I mean, I was watching, but she couldn't hear me or anything. So I'm like trying to get her attention and everything, nothing. And then eventually everything kind of like does that, what is it, Vignette or whatever that thing is with your photos, the black around the ring. And it just starts going black and black and black. And then eventually the harder it got to breathe, the smaller the circle. And then eventually it was black. And I sat up and was gasping for air at my mom's house. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, I think he just died. And then the phone rang. And my mom, it was in the middle of the night, and my mom went and answered the phone, and she came around the corner, and I just looked at her. I was like, Grandpa's dead, isn't he? She was like, how the hell did you know that? I was like, I just know. So apparently, while I was dying, he was dying, and I was right there. And what was interesting is the nurse that I was screaming at, trying to get her attention, we had the same name.
Yeah.
How weird is that? Because
Yeah.
I don't have a very popular name. But yeah.
What did your grandfather pass away from?
So I think what it was is there's speculation whether it was he was being very aggressive and he maybe got over medicated, which explains the foot and hand things and not being able to move because he was being violent, or he could have just, I mean, he was old.
Right.
So yeah, but that was one of them.
Have you, let's turn this into like a Scooby-Doo mystery series here. Have you ever like solved a crime doing this? Have you ever reached out? Like the woman who was stabbed, was she arrested? Was that person
I don't,
arrested?
I don't know. I just saw the story, and you got to think, wasn't well, I really wasn't that old. I mean, I was only maybe 19, maybe. I don't even know for sure. I think I was about 19. But whenever I saw it, I saw a hooded figure, like dark, like a navy blue or a black hoodie with dark jeans. I couldn't see a face, so I wouldn't even know who it was if I saw them. I just know it was a man, is all I know. I can tell you exactly what she looked like, but I couldn't see what he looked like.
That's wild. And do you
Yeah.
still have these experiences?
The last one I had was the worst one. And it's because it was somebody that was very close to me. And that was 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago during COVID, was a little after COVID. So let's see, I was still working at that place. So actually, no, it's 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, I I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. Like when we were little, they basically like helped raise us. And they're 2 states away, or were, I guess, 2 states away. And my grandma passed away first. She had a stroke and she came to see me. That was kind of nice that I got to see her. But then my grandpa moved in with my aunt in Missouri, and I would drive down there to take him. Like when he got his pacemaker put in, I drove him down there. Like if he needed a ride, it didn't matter what it was. Like I would drive the 9-10 hours to get there or whatever to make sure that he got where he needed to go. So I tried to spend as much time with him as I could. So we were pretty tight. And I, again, I went to bed just like every other night before, didn't think anything of it until I woke up again and I was in a hospital. And I was trying to figure out what was happening, but it was a little different than normal because I seemed like I was really foggy, like my brain, like I couldn't think straight. Everything was kind of fuzzy. My head hurt real bad. I couldn't concentrate. I was like, what the hell's happening? Like I was having a hard time breathing. And, I was just kind of looking around and in my dream, I looked over and my aunt was there, but she didn't recognize me. She recognized my grandpa, obviously, and I was just kind of there for the ride, I guess. And so I'm just kind of watching, and it's like people were talking, but I couldn't understand. It was weird. Like I couldn't understand what the doctors were saying. Like they were talking, but it was like jumbled or something. It was really weird. But then I remember my aunt, she reached out and she was talking and she was really upset. Whatever the doctor said made her really upset. And she was crying and she's like, we got a call. And I was telling her, yes, let's get everybody on a FaceTime call. I want to tell everybody, goodbye, blah, blah, blah. And what was interesting is so we go through this whole thing and we get everybody on the call, but there's this big hubbub because we couldn't find my brother. My brother just was missing. And so he was really nervous. Like I could feel him being nervous about because he's the only boy really out of the group. And so he was really wanting to talk to my brother, but we couldn't find him, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like everything else was really fuzzy. And then again, I couldn't breathe. It felt like something was just sitting on me. Like it almost the exact same way as with my other grandpa, like years before that. And everything started to do that thing. It all got black. And then eventually it went all black. I woke up and I was a fucking mess. I mean, I was a mess because by this point I'd already known about 5 people. So I know. And it's weird. It's a different feeling in the dreams. Whenever I wake up, I can sometimes have dreams about other people, and I know that they're not affected. It's something totally different. But there's a certain feeling when I'm in these particular dreams that I could feel that it's real, if that makes sense. Like I know that it's real. And I was very, very, very upset. And I had told my husband, I was like, I need to take PTO. I've got to go. I've got to go see him. He's not going to make it much longer. I've got to go see him. Skeptic Sammy, honey, it's all in your head. It's fine. It's all in your head. You don't need to go. You don't need to go. It's fine. He's fine. Just call him. Call him and talk to him. It'll be fine. So I call him and he's fine. I mean, we had a great conversation. He was totally coherent. We talked about the Chiefs game the night before. He said that he had plans the next weekend to go line dancing with one of his friends because he was that guy. And it was a great conversation. Nothing seemed wrong. And I got off the phone, but I still had that feeling like something wasn't right. Like I know I could feel it. And he's like, but he was fine, right? I was like, well, he sounded fine now. I said, but he's I'm telling you, I was like, he's gonna die. And my husband talked me out of going. And I go to work and my phone rings, which we all know, like, you don't call me at work because it's just, don't call me. And it's my mom. And I'm like, the moment I saw her name, I knew. And so she answers the phone and she proceeds to tell me, now this is where it all starts to make sense. Okay. My grandpa had fallen. He got out of his chair. He fell. He cracked his head on a table, was bleeding everywhere because the head wound. And they could not get him up the stairs on their own. They had to call the EMS for them to come get him on the stretcher, and take him out. They get him to the hospital. They start looking at him. They run the tests. Come to find out, he had gotten COVID. Then he got double pneumonia. And because he had COVID and double pneumonia, his oxygen level tanked. And so when he stood up from his chair, he passed out and smacked his head and had a concussion. So while I was dreaming that I couldn't focus and everything was fuzzy and my head hurt, that explains it. So then they start talking, and I have like serious goosebumps right now. But they start talking, and they're like, he's not going to make it. And I told her, I said, I already know. And she's like, well, maybe. I'm like, we're not going to make it, Mom. I was like, we're not. I said, yeah. I was like, he's got about maybe 20 minutes, and he's gone. So they're scrambling, just like before, to get everybody on a FaceTime call. And they go and they call. We can't find my fucking brother. Nobody can get a hold of my brother. He's missing. Not answering his phone. Can't find him. Just like in the dream. And so anyway, so we're having this conversation, and it is very hard to say bye to somebody who's not gone yet. Just throwing that out there. But he was not coherent. He was bumbling. He was having a hard time talking or getting his thoughts straight. But at one point he said my name, like directly at me, and told me that he loved me and said, thanks for visiting. I've been 2 states away for months, but he knew I was there. Somehow I was there and he knew it. And right about that time, we got off the phone. They finally got a hold of my brother, thank God. And as soon as my brother hung up the phone, it was like 10, 15 minutes later, I got a phone call that he's gone. I got home, and I will never, as much as I love my husband, I will never let that go, because I could have been there. Had I listened to my own gut, I would have been there, and I would have been able to say bye in person, or at least been there, when it happened, or something. But because I listened to Skeptic Sammy over here, it's yeah. But I've seen him a few times since he's passed, and he's doing really well, so that's good.
That part's good. I'm going to go to bat here for Skeptic Sammy for a minute. You going there could have changed the directory though and pushed it back a few days. Like you
I'm
don't
okay
know,
with that.
like no, I get that obviously. Who
Yeah,
knows what happened if you tried? You were already there and knew that you didn't make it.
but it would have been nice to see him
No, I knew.
like
I
in the
get that.
flesh,
Yeah,
like one more
yeah.
time because I knew. Because I mean, it's like one of those situations where a lot of people are like, "Well, I didn't know. If I'd have known that it was the last time I was going to see him," and I knew. But I was so pissed. I called him and I ripped him up one side, down the other. I was fucking livid. I was just like, man, like you're killing me. I even told him about his stepdad. I've never even met his stepdad. And I was
You're
like,
just the
hey,
bearer of good news. He's,
yeah, I was
you could
like,
open your mouth. He's like, hold on. Like, what are we
yeah.
covering here?
I was like, babe, I was like, if you have anything to say to your stepdad, you might want to call him because I was like, he's gonna die soon. He's like, what? And I was like, he's gonna die soon. I was like, in your mom's house, in a hospital bed, oddly enough. And he's like, but he's been in a nursing home for years. Why the hell would he be in my mom's house? That doesn't make any sense. I've never met the man. I just know his name. And I was like, he's going to die in your mom's house soon. The same day I woke up, and that day we got a phone call from his mother that they were moving him into hospice care into her house that day. And the next day he died. I was like, I told you.
This would all be a lot better if you could see like 6 Powerball numbers. Like,
I know. Although
focus on that.
I did have intuition one time to buy a lottery ticket, and I spent $20 and made $2,000.
That's how you make this work for you. That's it.
Unfortunately, it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
We need Dave the Ghost and all those other guys. Just flash the numbers on the screen. Just a little.
David, Philip, Gertrude, everybody.
Help us out here.
Numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy.
But yeah, and it's just like I said, it's just weird stuff, and I don't know when it happens or why it happens. I have no control over it. I've never tried to have control over it. It just kind of does what it does, and I'm just like, this person's gonna die. Or when I called to the point where I've called the last 2 kids for his daughter, and I knew what they were, even though they both times thought it was the opposite sex, and I was like, no. I was like, well, I caught the one that did make it. I knew she was pregnant. She came to tell us like 2 days later. And as soon as I met her, I felt really bad because I came inside and I was like, babe. And he's like, what? I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this. I was like, but she's going to need you. And he's like, what? And I'm like, something's not right with that baby. I was like, it's not good. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I was like, but it's not going to make it. And it only made it another like week or 2. And then she lost it. But then just like a few weeks later, or like a month or 2 later, I was like, hey, she's pregnant again. Like, it's a boy. I was like, but he's fine. Like, he's going to be fine. And now there's the boy. And then I got her again and I was like, hey, you're going to have another baby. And surprise, it's a boy. Yeah. And so then I actually had this specific story. I wanted to put it on my pod. So I wanted her permission. So I called her and I was like, hey, I just have a question real quick. She was like, oh my God, hold on. And she's like, everything's good, right? There's just one in there. And I was like, everything's fine. She's like, oh, okay. And then my sister did the same thing. She's like, I'm not pregnant, am I? I was like, no, you're fine.
Sometimes I call to talk about normal things.
Yeah. I was like, I just questioned. They're like, oh, they're like, you make me nervous when you call now.
That's funny. That's crazy.
Yeah. But they also try to hide it. There's that time frame that people don't like to tell. And I knew my little sister actually. So right now we have my stepson, his fiance's having a baby, my stepdaughter's having a baby, and my sister's having a baby all at the same time. And that was a mixture of messages in my head because I couldn't keep everybody straight with who was what because it was all like within 3 weeks of each other. I was like, what's happening? And she did something. I told my mom, I was like, hey, is she trying to have another baby? She's like, oh, well, yeah, she said she's trying, but she's not had very much success. And I was like, when was the last time you asked her? She was like, well, I just asked her, like yesterday. And I was like, she's lying. She's like, what? I'm like, okay, either she's lying to you or she doesn't know yet, but she's pregnant and it's a girl. She's like, what? I was like, I'm just telling you. I was like, if she doesn't know, then she needs to know. Congrats. I was like, if she does know, she's pulling a fast one on you. And come to find out the next week, she went to the doctor and found out, and she didn't know until I called and said that she was pregnant, that she went to the doctor.
You need to host like a live call-in show and then have people just call in and you can just tell them what's happening.
Yeah, I say, well, if I trusted my judgment, but like I said, I don't advertise it. I don't trust my judgment enough to know. But if I say something is going to happen, you know that I am 100% in, because if I don't know 100%, I don't feel that it's right. I'm not one of those people that like guesses or whatever, gives you some vague answer like a horoscope, charge $20 for it. Like if I tell you, it's just because I feel like you need to know. But yeah,
I
magic
love it.
powers.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man. It's like I kind of hope. No, I don't even know if I kind of hope for it. Like the minimal experience that I've had, I'm like, nah, I'm kind of good with that. And if it's start to ramp up, but I'm like, I got things to focus on. Like I feel like it might like take over my spare time.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, but because it happens to me all the time, I don't think anything of it, which, to be fair, so I record all of my episodes now because so much weird stuff was happening and it wasn't getting recorded. I was like, no one's going to fucking believe me. So I started recording all of my episodes because so much weird stuff was going on. And it's funny because like things will happen and like sometimes I just like shrug it off or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like it's no big deal. And people are like, I'll tell them my story and they're like, how like that would scare the hell out of me. They're like, how? I'm like, I don't know if I'm just used to it, or maybe it's the fact that the ones generally, there's really only one in here that makes me feel uncomfortable. But most of the other ones are, I mean, they seem pretty benign. They're just kind of here. It's like they're just along for the ride, just like we are, and they're just kind of like, we don't know what the hell's happening, but hey, what's up? You can hear me, cool, or something like that. It doesn't seem anything. I did have to cut a live show short a couple days ago though, because my unfriendly one was in here, and it made me so nauseous. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I have to leave. I was like, it doesn't want me in here. I got to go. And the same thing I talked about, I was on another episode, and what's interesting is I was talking, and out of nowhere, my nose just started gushing blood everywhere, and it like wouldn't stop. And then I was finally like, I'm sorry, I won't talk about it. Like I'll move on, and then it stopped. And when we went back to look at the footage, it was just a black screen. It blacked out the whole screen, the entire episode.
Oh man.
And even the people I was recording with, I went and asked them, they were like, no, we saw it. And I was like, well, it's gone now. So yeah.
My son the other day was just walking around the living room and then like blood just started gushing out of his nose. I was like, what? Like, what is happening? So we got him all squared away. But now that, when I see him tomorrow morning, I'm going to give him an extra set of eyes. I'm like, well, what's happening over there, man?
Now I will say too, though. So my son also used to get really bad bloody noses for no reason. And when they did his adenoids, they cauterized spots in his nose. So now he doesn't have that. So maybe he's just, if it's dry
This is the
sometimes,
first time it ever happened to him. Maybe like little, like
maybe he got hit in the face by a ghost.
I maybe, yes. I'm gonna look at him like, oh, there you go. There he is. Yeah. That one's just bragging that he did it.
So sometimes if we make a joke, that actually usually it's this ball that lights up. If I make a joke, something usually hits this ball because it likes it. I don't know why, but it's a funny one. But one of them keeps calling me an idiot.
Like, in general or right now? You have your app open?
No, my app's not open right now, but I'll open it and it'll be like, idiot. I'm like, well, that's fucking rude. Now, in its defense, I was talking and they hadn't worked. I had them up for a week and they never once went off. And I was on a live feed. So I had turned them all on. And then I was like making notes and just getting things set up. And I was like, oh yeah, there's sensors that they go off, blah, 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 blah. And eventually I looked up and realized one went off. So I hit highlight. So it went back like 2 minutes or something and then like forward. And I had turned my phone on as soon as that happened. And it goes, idiot. I was like, idiot. Well, then I went back and looked at the highlight. It's on my TikTok feed, by the way. Actually, I think I posted it on all my social medias. I'm clearly looking down and I'm doing stuff. And this fucking thing is just going crazy. It lights up, it's going bananas, and I don't even notice. I mean, the whole cycle it goes through, and then it stops. Then it goes off again. And I'm not paying attention. And it's just lighting up like, and I'm talking about them touching it, and I'm not looking. And then it stops. And then it goes off again. And I was like, no wonder why this thing's like, you fucking idiot.
Like begging for you, like, look at me. And right? I got stuff to do.
Doing it. And I just wasn't paying attention. I was like, I'm so sorry, whoever you were. I clearly am an idiot. Yeah.
It's fun. You just have random visitors. They pop in during the show.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And actually, I'm really surprised because that one down there that went off earlier, that is the first time that one's gone off. This one's really popular when there's jokes involved. This one just periodically comes on, but this one's never been on yet. But that one's the first one that one's gone on. So yeah, I never know. They just kind of they come and I'm like, oh hey, they must like the joke, which is funny because like this one, sometimes it doesn't go off unless there's a joke. So like every now and then I'll tell a joke to see if it goes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But usually it only goes off if we're being funny. But it's got a decent sense of humor. That was Philip's ball the other night. Philip was claiming that one.
That
But
ball would crush my ego. Not that I'm this like super funny person, but like I like to think I'm a little bit funny and
Hey.
crack jokes here and there. And if it wasn't lighting up like the entire episode, I'm like, please, just one little laugh, Ghost. Like, please, just appreciate what I'm doing for you.
Yeah, I'm the funniest person I know. So or at least that's what everybody says. But yeah, and what's funny is there's a lot of activity and they really are specified. So there's Melissa from Ouch Was That a Ghost? And I record with her a lot. I love her. She's great. And there's something which is interesting. The balls don't go off as much with her. But when we go back, regardless of which one of us is recording, there's like extra voices which she edits. Like she picks up EVPs in hers like when we record all the time. One of them scared the holy shit out of her. Now, granted, it was her own fault. She did edit the episode at 2:30 in the morning. So that was problem one. Problem two, I was the episode she was editing. So that's another problem. And it's actually, if you go on my social medias, it's on like all of them. It's like a picture. It's like a green screen, like a Spotify episode with a little ghost on it. And it's like 18 seconds long. And when you hit play, there's a little bit of sound at the beginning, but that's not what you want to listen to. I mean, I think it's something trying to say something, but I couldn't understand it. But if you wait, I start talking. It's the first time that I start talking in the episode. And there's a man's voice that comes over mine and it says almost dead. And then but we just keep going because we didn't hear anything when we were recording. She only heard it when she went back and was listening. And it came from, she even broke it up and everything. And it came from my microphone. And it was just the girls. So there wasn't even a boy in the house. And it just came up and it was just like almost dead and then just left. I was like, well, that's ominous.
Mental note, edit this during daylight hours.
Yeah, check it too, because there's another one. If you guys listen to my episode with Spirit Crew Australia or South Australia, she's great. I love her. We were talking about different pieces of equipment that she uses on her investigations. And she was talking about a bear. She said she's got a stuffed bear and she was looking for it and finding it. And she says whenever something happens to it, kind of like the balls, if something passes in front of it, the paws light up and it like makes a noise. And I had told her, I said, oh, I was like, I have a spook over here that would just love that toy. And in my recording, there's like a pause and then she starts talking and that was it. When I went back to record, it was that. And then you hear, mommy, like right after I say that, like it just was like, I'm here. The worst part is right after that. So whatever the thing is that makes me nauseous does not like the kids at all. It's not nice. So you hear mommy, and then you hear like this thing that sounds like it's saying like fuck off or something. And it's like this deep guttural voice, like right afterwards, like it's like shooing him out of the way. And I was just like, okay.
Man, I'm excited to go back and listen to this and edit and see what's in there.
Yep. Because I leave them all in. So when I'm recording, if I'm doing all my stuff, if I hear anything, I just leave it in. A lot of times they're quiet, so I have to like, amplify them and stuff like that. But I just leave everything in there. And so if you do listen to my episodes and you come across anything that's kind of funky, I know it's funky because if you listen carefully, it's something that just does not fit in the episode.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaving that. I'm taking out when you said bless you when I was sneezing on mute. People aren't going to hear like that stuff. That's coming out. I said, but we have strange voices in there. That will stay in there.
Yeah, we'll see. Because really, I've only had, I think, one or two people that have had it go across. Usually, it's whenever. Well, I guess I've just not been on that many shows. It's probably explaining why I'm the one who has them because they don't edit them because I edit them. I'm an idiot.
Oh. I'm excited to see what happens with this. I'm excited. But we're hitting close to my witching hour here. Nothing good happens on my witching hour except I go to sleep, so I'm ready for work tomorrow. But Natasha, I seriously appreciate you coming on. Open door policy. Come back. I feel like we just scratched the surface here. Yeah. You are at Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy, singular. What's good? Where are you streaming? Where can people find you? You just put out a post the other day of some new merch that you have,
Oh my gosh,
t-shirts.
yes. I'm super
That was
excited.
awesome. Yeah, that was so cool.
I I actually, so we'll start with this part. You can listen to me literally everywhere that you can listen to a podcast, you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find. If you do have Spotify, there is a way that you can, if you subscribe to the Patreon feed, you can listen on Spotify. So it's all interlinked. So you don't have to go back and forth between the apps. Some people did realize that it did that. So I like to tell people that now. Social media, I am pretty much everywhere. I try Twitter the best I can, or X, or whatever you call it. I'm not the greatest. I do get on there, but there's really not a whole lot of interaction. People primarily interact with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's just all kinds of random stuff on there. I do have my website. It's www.cryptidscreepsandconspiracy.com. And on there, you're able to listen to the episodes. There's a link to get to one of the merch sites. I know there's a little tricky. I got two. The contact form. There's all kinds of, you can leave a review. There's all kinds of crap. You can, if you want to be nice and donate to the pod to help. I'm hoping to get to some conventions this year, and conventions cost money. So if you would like to donate, I would appreciate it. There's links on there. And on any of the social media, here's what I like to give out. Any of those in the bios, there is a link for Linktree. Now, it's a little different. The website has mostly everything. The Linktree link in all of my social medias, however, pretty much has everything. I mean, it's got YouTube link. It's got all the social media links. I actually have two merch sites. I have TeePublic, and it's labeled as TeePublic. That's where a majority of my designs go, and that I post everything. There is also Square merch, which is where like my dress that I'm wearing at the moment, it's got my logo on it. I'm going to be making some more on there as well. It's just, they have different options. So there's like dresses, there's this really awesome metal like tumbler cup that seems like it's a lot easier, like wash and everything, than the TeePublic one. So I got those. There's hats that aren't available on TeePublic that are all on there. I've got beanies and ball caps and all kinds of stuff on there. There's again places to donate on there as well if you'd like. So it just kind of has more options if you click through the social media link to the Linktree one.
Awesome. I will put all your links in the show notes. People can find you. I greatly appreciate you coming on. Open
Appreciate
door.
it.
I need to hear more. I had a lot of fun with you. I'm
Yeah.
stalling here. I was hoping for like one more light in the background.
I know.
I guess I'm
Hold on.
wrapping up here. I'm like,
Can somebody hit the light, please? Do I have to tell a joke? I gotta come up with a good joke. I tried another joke, but it apparently wasn't as funny. I said, What do you call a bear with no teeth?
I don't know what.
A gummy bear. I didn't like that joke earlier either, but it was a shot.
I think that was good.
My kid told me that when he was like 7.
I'm gonna tell that to my daughter tomorrow, and that'll probably make her the most popular kid in second grade tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Hey, we gotta
So we'll
spread the
see.
word.
That's
Oh,
it.
I do want to tell everybody, I know I have a thing in the beginning of every episode, but I want to make sure that I tell everyone, majority of my episodes do not listen with young children. Be wary. So everything's labeled explicit. I have a disclaimer at the beginning of my episode, but I do want to make sure that I do throw that out there. It's primarily because my pirate mouth, and if it's anything outside of pirate mouth, which is usually because things get a little steamy, I guess, it has extra explicit warnings in it before I start. So just be aware of that. I just want to make sure that everybody knows they don't just like, oh, I'll try this podcast out while they're shuffling 6 kids from, the school. And then next thing you know, I'm like dropping an F-bomb and they're like, yeah. So I'll just save you the trouble.
Yeah, my show does not get too steamy, but the language here, these kids are it's the school of hard knocks, man. These kids are going to graduate straight A's. I'm showing them the way. We celebrate all the words here.
Yeah, what's great is I actually just posted a bonus episode that I actually did with my son. So I tried to keep it somewhat clean. I still threw out some dirty words, but it's fine. But yeah, so a little bit of a disclaimer. There's Icelandic elf sex and the goat man. Those ones are the two that need to be extra careful.
Wow. Sounds like you have to turn those up. I did record. So my kids came home from the school library, and my daughter brought home a ghost book, and I think my son brought home a Bigfoot book, and they read it. And they're like, Dad, can we do a podcast with you? So I recorded it.
That's
and it's just
awesome.
been, I haven't put it, I don't think I'm gonna put it out, but it was, I sent to my family and everything, but it was so cool. And I interviewed them, and I used I don't know if they played Roblox or something. And Fortnite.
Yep.
So yeah, I used like their names for that instead of like the real ones. And they were so
I
beaming
abbreviate
and
his. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's H-Man. So it's H-Man, and even though the video was here, we're not gonna air it just because I'm weird like that. So yeah. But I totally get it. But if she likes ghost books, Adam Benedict, he wrote this book. It's great. It's called Ghosts in Print. You can get it on Amazon.
Oh, she's 7, so maybe we'll say that for her. She's a little older.
Well, all these are like old timey news articles that he was able to gather to put and compile into this book. It's just like old timey like ghost stories
Okay.
or ghost
Maybe I'll read her
encounters.
some at night. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
You just held it up and it
too.
was like 6 inches thick. And I was like, why don't she make it through that? We're still on like the.
Oh no, it's literally like it's like one at a time, and it'll be like
Oh,
here's
okay.
one. That's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're by like
perfect.
they're by year, and some of them are like 1870, 1872. Like, so they're really old, but they're great. And there's a Monsters in Print also if your kid is into the monsters. And it's the same.
Me, I'm getting it.
Yeah, it's really good. He writes both of them, and I love them. They're really great. So
I love them, but check those out. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh.
All right. Well, stay safe out there. Enjoy it and enjoy your balls lighting up.
all right, I'm gonna turn them off and head to bed.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. That was our show. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. Like and follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date in all things wild and weird. Check out the links in the show notes for more information on our guests. The biggest support you can offer is to tell everyone about the podcast. Until next time.